First of all, I would like to say welcome to all of you, and thank you very much for being here and joining us today. Um, and all of you are attending from different places to receive this teaching. So I really appreciate your great effort and your inspiration and also your support. And I'm very happy to see all of you and very happy to give this teaching. As usual, take a moment and correct your motivation. To correct your motivation when you receive Dharma teaching means you need to actively examine your thoughts, your intention, and change your focus towards compassion and the benefit of all sentient beings rather than seeking only your focus, your on benefit. So if you notice self-centered, selfish motivation arising in your mind, then you should acknowledge them without any sort of judgment and gently redirect your focus towards more kindness and compassionate intention. Cultivate a desire to benefit all sentient beings, including yourself. And by understanding that everyone experiences suffering and deserve happiness, this motivate our Dharma friends who attend my teachings regularly. Of course, they know how important this is, but if they're a new student, you might not know about this. So therefore, your intention, your motivation is the key. How to benefit all sentient beings, including yourself. Okay. Now, this teaching is from Pema Dündul, who was a very famous treasure revealer from Tibet, I think in the 19th century. He was an embodiment of the treasure revealer, Longser Nyangpo from Katok Monastery. Pema Dündul received teachings from Chapter Chöng'arandor, Dzogchen, the what do you call it, Pama Mbajara, Padma Dorje, and Mingyur Namkha Dorje, who was the abbot of Dzogchen Monastery. These teachers are very, very, enlightened beings, great teachers. So Pema Dündul received lots of teachings from these great masters. Padma Dündul lived in a cave and practiced for many years. And then after that, he built at least 6 different monasteries, different places in Tibet, and also he built a nunnery in Tibet. And then he gave many extensive teachings and a lot of empowerments. And he was a teacher of the first Anzam Drukpa Rinpoche. My teacher, Anzam Drukpa Rinpoche, was the second reincarnation of the first Anzam Drukpa Rinpoche. And also, Padma Dündul gave teachings to Lirab Langba. Kanchen Jigme Panso was reincarnated Lirab Langba. So there are some connections between us. Then before he passed away, he gathered his disciples and gave some teachings. At that time, he lived in a small tent, very remote area, not monastery. And then after that, with all this, his disciples, he gave very important instructions. And then he passed away in a small tent. And a week later, they found his empty clothes, his empty robes. His whole body had disappeared, and they believed that he attained the rainbow body. I think he was the last among many yogis from Kathok monastery who successfully attained the rainbow body. By the way, these days there is no rainbow body, but at that time, like there are lots of teachers, especially from Kathok monastery. So he was, I think, last among many yogis from Kathok monastery who attained the rainbow body. And then his disciples built a stupa where he passed away, and he attained the rainbow body. That stupa is still in Tibet, you can see. So the rainbow body is possible. It's a possible. Everything is possible, but it's extremely real. So that's short about the Nyala Pema Dündul's history. He was a great, great, great enlightened being. Now, this teaching is called Signs that the common preliminary practice have penetrated the mind. Many of his students asked Padma Dündul, what are the signs of preliminary practice? That's why he revealed this teaching. So I thought this teaching is good for us, good for you, because many of you have finished the preliminary practices. Many of you are doing the preliminary practice right now. So I think it's important to hear these teachings and to understand what are the signs of preliminary practice if you do it correctly. You may think I finished my practice, but how do I know that my practice were good and what are the signs? 500,000 preliminary practice and also the outer preliminary takes very long time. So you might think wanted to know what is the result and practice the preliminary science so you can see today. If you practice the preliminaries correctly, they said you get this science, you know. Not only the Pema Dündul from these teachings, but all of the Bapta Rinpoche and Longchenpa and Maha Rinpoche all said same kind of the result, and that they all had this kind of experience in science from their preliminary practice. Myself, I practiced the preliminaries, I told you many times, 5 times with different texts, different preliminaries. The first time I practiced the preliminaries was because my mom wanted to do, and I was leader. I think like 5 or 6 years old. But I didn't really know what I was doing. But even though I didn't practice it well, now I really appreciate my mom because she introduced me to that path. My mom also practiced preliminaries, I think, as far I know, 2 times. Since I felt that I did not practice the preliminaries correctly the first time, then I started it again. And then the second time, it was a little bit better than first because intellectually I know the meaning because at that time I studied Buddhism, but still not good. So I started third, fourth, fifth again because when I finished my preliminaries and then I investigate, oh, it's not so good. Oh, it's not so good. So I studied 5 times. And when I compared the first and the last one, for example, my last one was much better than the first one, but still not the best. So I kept them as my daily practice and focus on quality over quantity. So these days, just practice preliminaries regularly every day. So if you are sort of rushing through the practice, slow down and engage more deeply with each one, and more importantly, your faith in the practice and lineage is crucial for this practice. As you know, spiritual progress takes time. Because if you are rushing through, like, oh, I have to finish this preliminaries and then I can go to next. Then when you finish preliminary, from my own experience, I feel guilt, like, oh, I did not good job, so I have to start all over again. So practice and spiritual experience take lots of time. So this science may not appear immediately, But that doesn't mean your practice is ineffective or there is no beneficial. It doesn't mean that. So trust the process and just to keep going and focus on the quality. Buddhist people practice Dharma. It's because Dharma practice is the process of awakening from illusion, from ignorance. The benefit of Dharma practice is we can reduce the amount of stress and worry in our lives. That I can tell. That's why Great Master Atisha said, aim your mind at the Dharma, aim your Dharma practice at simple living. When we practice Dharma, we start with the preliminaries because they're the essence of all Dharma. Now, as you know, the preliminaries for the Buddhist path can be broken down in two different parts, the outer and inner preliminaries. And you start with the outer preliminaries, which are practicing the four thoughts that change the mind. And the purpose of practicing on these four thoughts is they give you the motivation to practice Dharma. That's so important. If you want to do something, first you need like, oh, I want to do this because of this benefit, so that kind of motivation. So this fourth thought, practicing four thoughts that change your mind makes you really practice Dharma. So the first is precious human life. We contemplate our precious life, which means to think in a logical way about the definition of a precious human life and why it is precious. We human beings are able to make life choice, and among this choice we have access to spiritual teachings and practice that can help us develop the qualities that we value most. But this opportunity is not forever. That's why it is precious. We have the power to use most of these challenges to learn more about ourselves and open our mind and hearts. And we have the ability to recognize our true nature, and we have the opportunity to practice Dharma, and that helps us develop these qualities and train our mind. So we have everything we need to change our lives for the better. That's why it is precious. We consider how fortunate we are to be human and how we can make the most of this special opportunity for inner self-development through practice in the Dharma. We have the opportunity to accomplish something meaningful. That's why it is very precious. So we are fortunate to be born as human beings, not just that, but have the opportunity to practice the Dharma. So we contemplate and meditate on this precious life every day. If you are practicing the preliminaries and practicing the Dharma, because this outer preliminary, the four thoughts, are the most important practice in Buddhism. So every single day we have to remember and meditate on this precious life. So if you do that, then you think, what is the sign? What is the result of this practice? So Pema Dündul says, the first, Rangli Pomit Dubla Tangshina, Tarnjerinchin Nyangbo Lombi Tak in Tibetan. It means if you can devote your body without hesitation to the Dharma practice, that's a sign that you have taken to heart the preciousness of the freedom and advantages. When you truly understand and appreciate the precious opportunity of have a human life with the freedoms and advantages to practice, you will naturally dedicate yourself wholeheartedly to it. And you no longer waste time on meaningless distractions. That's a good sign that you understand the precious human life. It says, devote your body without hesitation. Pomit in Tibetan, pomit. It literally means being wholeheartedly committed to the practice. You are committing yourself fully, physically, mentally, and emotionally to spiritual practice. And you feel a deep motivation to make use of your life for spiritual progress, knowing that time is short, and without doubt, wholeheartedly, physically, mentally, emotionally. That's Tibetan pomit. So if you feel a deep motivation to make use of your life for practice Dharma, that's a good sign. You genuinely appreciate your opportunities, such as having access to teachings, to understand the Dharma teachings, and so forth. So there is this deep feeling and great experience and recognition of this preciousness in your mind all the time. not just intellectually understand it, but feeling it very deeply in a way that transforms how you live, and you can focus on what is truly matter, what is truly beneficial. That's a good sign. You are thinking that I am so fortunate to have this opportunity. So I don't want to waste this opportunity. Understanding this, it gives you the ability, opportunity to practice so that you can accomplish your wish for happiness, and you feel like whatever I encounter while practicing the Dharma, I will do it without hesitation, no matter how difficult it may be. It gives you a strong courage so that when you encounter any kind of obstacles, you become a fearless person. That's a good sign. That's why all the great Buddhist masters are able to confront their difficult challenges, like Milarepa, like Longchenpa. They have no hesitations, no matter how difficult it may be, when it comes to their practice, the Dharma, because they understand this human life is precious. That's why they can do whatever makes their life meaningful and beneficial to everyone, including them. That's why they can give up everything for Dharma practice. So as you go over each of these freedoms and advantages of the precious human life, you will recognize the freedoms and advantages you have and what you can do with them. You realize that the body with these freedoms is extremely precious. Not just I'm saying this intellectual, but there is a deep, deep, deep feeling that you really understand. When you go over each of these freedoms and advantages, 8 freedoms, 10 advantages. Do you understand all of them right now? If I say, tell me all of that. If you don't know, if you don't remember, you are not practicing precious human life. But if you really understand all these freedoms, advantages, each of them, and think and contemplate on their meaning and all of that you have right now, and this is extremely fortunate and precious. If you feel that, that's a good sign that you understand you have precious human life. When naturally develop a sense of commitment to use your life meaningfully, don't want to waste your life and these distractions under the control of attachment. If you feel that, that's a good sign. Whenever you think about it, if you are willing to devote your body, your time, your energy wholeheartedly to Dharma practice, whatever happens, there is no holding back. And you no longer see spiritual practice as optional or secondary, but as the central purpose of your life. If you have that feeling and understanding, experience, that is a good sign that you understand how precious this life is. When you can wholeheartedly dedicate yourself to Dharma practice, it shows that you have recognized the value of this human life. As a result of practicing these four thoughts, you will get a strong feeling of how precious and important this body with these freedoms is. So when these qualities or signs arise naturally in your mind, it's a strong indication that you understand the precious of your life. So that exactly Pema Dündul is talking here. If you practice the four thoughts, the precious human life is the first thought. So you meditate, you contemplate on the precious human life, freedom's advantage, you go over each of this, and then you practice correctly, you will feel this kind of science and experiences, not intellectually. Of course, we understand we are precious, we are lucky, we are, we have all these opportunities. Like intellectually, we understand compared to animals. But that's intellectual understanding. Means nothing. It's important intellectual understanding, but just only that, nothing can appear all the science and qualities through the intellectual understanding. Okay, that's the first. Now the next verse is if you can view gold and dirt with equanimity, seeing them as equal, that's a sign that you have realized the illusory nature of transient things. When you have, this is the second thought, that impermanent of life. So when you have truly realized the impermanent, the nature of life, it transforms the way you think, you feel, and you act. So it says here, view gold and dirt with equanimity. Gold symbolizes things you usually view as valuable, desirable, pleasurable, right? So it represents attachment. And dirt symbolizes things you often see as worthless, unpleasant, undesirable, or aversion. It represents sort of rejection and the tendency to avoid discomfort. So therefore, you can't view gold and dirt as equal, as ordinary human being because of attachment and anger. You love gold. You don't like dirt. That's, represent attachment and aversion. But Pema Dündul says, by seeing them as equal, that means you are no longer controlling by attachment one or aversion to the other. So when you view gold and dirt as equal, you are free from attachment, craving, and aversion. Then the external circumstance, whether favorable or unfavorable, don't disturb your inner peace. And that means you are no longer clinging tightly to your, for example, your possessions, and you are no longer caught in the dualistic thinking of good versus bad, gain versus lose, so forth. So that's a good sign. So the result of practice in impermanence is you can reduce your clinging to permanent. Of course, you all know these teachings intellectually, but to feel that having this life is precious and it is impermanent, that is something else. Starting this practice with practice in these teachings, 20 minutes a day is wonderful, but eventually you should not be content with just practicing these teachings 20 minutes a day, because I suggested that amount, each forethought. Do you all know who are practicing the preliminary? You have to contemplate and meditate four thoughts. Each thoughts 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, total like 20 minutes every single day. No matter when you are finished preliminaries, still you have to contemplate on these four thoughts. 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes total every day. That's what I told you, but you have to think and practice these teachings again and then again until you feel it in your heart in a deeper level. It's not 20 minutes a day. It's what is truly in your heart, in your mind. 20 minutes is just a method. So you all know these teachings intellectually because they are common teachings. You heard them so many times, different teachers, different times, but it is difficult to have the genuine experience in your mind. So as long as you don't protect your mind from the uh, disturbing thoughts, emotions, suffering has no end. Samsara has no end. Whenever you protect your mind, no negative thoughts and emotions, samsara ended. Uh, there's no samsara. So you have to stop creating new causes of suffering every day through practicing these four thoughts. You are the only, Buddha Shakyamuni said that, you are the only people who can protect your life, your mind from negative thoughts and emotions. But only in Buddhism, the only through spiritual practice you can protect your mind from negative thoughts and emotions. So you should make a good commitment to practice without wasting your time for even one day. That doesn't mean you practice 24 hours, but just practice every single day. Think about for your practice is a very short time compared to your other activities in your daily life, right? But even if you practice for a short time, it's still very, very beneficial if you do it correctly. So, as you know, from the Buddhist viewpoint, practice and impermanence is the key to happiness. It brings you a lot of benefit, less stress, less attachment, less desire, you know. Right now, like we cannot let go of even like small things because of clinging to um, permanence of attachment. We are making these mystics of seeing everything in a permanent way because of attachment. Things do change from moment to moment, but this is something that we just don't recognize because everything looks exactly the same, right? You are a different person today from yesterday, but we are kind of same, exactly same, so we just don't recognize. So this mistaken mental process is what we call illusion, ignorance. So we see ourselves as a permanent beings and wanting things to last forever. Therefore, you need to understand the relationship between impermanence and your personal, like your life, because you are attached to many things, and in order to find them, you have lots of obstacles, and that makes you, how do I say, stressed, bring lots of unhappiness. Therefore, in this rather short life that you have, you should be satisfied with what you have, and you should enjoy your life as long as it remains. So if you practice the impermanence of life, again, not intellectual, but on a deeper level, you will definitely have less attachment, definitely have more satisfaction, and that really brings happiness, enjoyment, appreciation, all that. When you have the realization of impermanent and illusory nature of samsaric life, then you can view gold and dirt with equanimity. That means you can, you have this kind of capacity, and you see, desirable or undesirable are equal. That is a good sign that you have the genuine experience of impermanence of life. And knowing that life is impermanence, you make meaningful use of your time by engaging in practice and benefiting others. That a good sign. And when you faced with suffering, difficulties, you don't react with frustration, but with understanding that everything subject to change. That's a good sign that you understand and deeper level this impermanence of life. When these qualities arise in your mind, it is a strong sign that impermanence is not just an intellectual understanding, but a true realization. So usually, like when we are facing with the difficulties and sufferings, we react with frustration, anger, jealousy, all that kind of things. But truly understand the impermanence of life, you don't react with frustrations. You react with understanding the nature of life is impermanent. So that you can view the gold and dirt as equal. That's basically what Pema Dündul is saying here. And that is the, what do you call it? The second thought, that the impermanence of life, right? I'm not talking here today how to practice these four thoughts. Talking here, this is the signs, right? Practicing preliminaries. What are the signs? So these are outer preliminaries, what I call. Now the next verse is korbi chula dar tongshi na dungar jam tsu paran rovi tags. If you can regard the phenomena of samsara as your enemies, that's a sign that you are crossing over the ocean of suffering. This is the third thought that change your mind, the suffering of samsara. So to regard the phenomena of samsara as your enemies, it means to develop a clear recognition of how attachment to worldly pleasures bring sufferings into your life. By seeing the nature of samsara as something to overcome rather than clinging to, right? Understanding that in your mind, that also a good sign. In Buddhism, the main obstacle to success on the path of liberation is attachment to samsara. And seeing how others, like ordinary people, are trapped in samsara, chasing happiness, yet experiencing suffering. And you develop strong kindness and a wish to help them find true happiness. That's a good sign that you understand samsara is suffering. If you recognize the even pleasurable experience are temporary and often lead to dissatisfaction when they end, if you know that, if you see that, if you feel that, that's a good sign that you understand your negative emotions are the cause of suffering. Samsara means your negative emotions, nothing else. So as long as you are controlled under the negative emotions, they bring unhappiness, suffering. That's what we call, Buddhists call samsara. Buddhists don't call about this outer, the external luxury things. That's not uh, what we say here. Like samsara is suffering. It's not that. Samsara is suffering means like all these negative emotions in your mind. So the great masters say that samsara's pleasures are very temporary imitation of happiness, and they make your mind turned away from the Dharma practice because of attachment, because of laziness, because of ignorance, because of desire and all that. Samsara is not just physical birth and death, but misunderstanding the true nature of reality under the power of attachment and aversion. We are not aware of how desires arise, how attachment arise, how they lead to suffering. We're not aware of that. So we don't really see our negative emotions as the cause of suffering in samsara. That's why Pema Dündul says here, if you regard the phenomena of samsara as your enemies, we don't really see our negative emotions as the cause of suffering in samsara. We don't see our negative emotions are our main, the worst enemies. So when you stop expecting life to be perfect or expecting your life free of all these problems, and instead accept that suffering is inevitable in samsara, as long as you are controlled under the controlled negative emotions. If you see that, that's good sign. If you realize the true nature of samsara, that is what Buddhists call liberation or enlightenment, and that person is called awakened one or Buddha, who understands the true nature of samsara, who eliminate all these negative emotions completely. That's what we call enlightened being. And if you feel all these worldly achievements no longer seem like your ultimate goals, that's a good sign. So the cause of attaining liberation is to start with making your mind contemplate these four thoughts as the foundation, and practice these four thoughts. You can see your negative emotions as your enemies. That's what we call samsara is suffering, because enemies makes us suffer. So that is a sign that you are crossing over the ocean of suffering. So when these qualities are arise in your mind, it's a sign that you no longer see samsara as a place to find true happiness. But these signs are a very high level. We are not even close to having this experience and these signs. This kind of practitioners are like Milarepa, like Longchenpa, like Mopam Rinpoche. We are not even close. But as a Dharma practitioner, Mahayana, we should have, I always say this, less attachment, more satisfaction. And I think that we can do that through practicing these four thoughts. Okay. Now the next is what is it? Limdi ger the lander shipshina tarvi temki nyelam simbita. So this is the fourth thought that change mind, the cause and effect and benefit of liberation. Uh, or if you can pay meticulous attention to your actions and their effects, adopting virtue and abandoning non-virtue, that's a sign that you have found the swept path for ascent to liberation. When a practitioner truly understands the cause and effect of karma, it can transform their thoughts, speech, and their actions. So it says, pay meticulous attention to your action and their effects. It means we have to be mindful of our thoughts, words, and recognizing each action has consequences, what we call it karma. Karma helps understand the relationship between cause and their results. So therefore, the Buddha taught karma, right? When you recognize that your current experience came from past actions and your future is being created by what you do now, this leads to mindful decision making, and that's a good sign. So the mind connected with actions, the action is what we call karma, and that karmic seed is planted in the mind. Therefore, it is important to pay attention to the actions. And knowing which actions we should take and which actions we should avoid, it gives us the opportunity to improve positive karma. Because positive karma is karmic seed in your mind that brings happiness. So in Buddhism, pay attention to action is essential. That's why bodhicitta is important. So by pay attention to your action, you can eliminate harmful habits, which helps purify your mind and supports your spiritual growth. So when you stop from harming others, unwholesome action, and knowing that they will bring future suffering, and you cultivate generosity, kindness, understanding that these actions lead to happiness and positive outcomes, that's a good sign. And when you pay attention to your actions, you purify the mind and you become more aware of how they affect others. That's why it is important to pay attention to your actions. When you less complaining, and more acceptance instead of blaming others or external circumstances. You accept the difficulties as a result of past karma and see them um, as opportunities for growth. That's a good sign. If you do all your actions with bodhicitta mind, and through those actions, you will be able to eliminate all your negative karma, which is with the bodhicitta mind, your action is very beneficial, not harmful. So when you do something, it's important to check the motivation carefully, as I've always mentioned to you all. Having more peace of mind depends on your actions, your attitude, and daily life. So in Buddhism, samsara is about our mind, as I said. It is not something outside. And also practice in Dharma is also our mind. It is not something outside. You think, there's nice, beautiful monasteries, beautiful statues, beautiful tangas. That's are not practice Dharma. That's not Dharma. Dharma is Dharma is not outside. Dharma is in our mind. Samsara is in our mind. It depends entirely on our good and bad intentions, all this. So that's why it says here, if you can pay a meticulous attention to your actions and their effects, that's sign that you have found a path to liberation. So when these qualities naturally guide your actions, it's a strong sign that you deeply understand the cause and effects of karma. So if your actions will be done with a bodhicitta, there will not be sort of harmful actions. But that is not easy. That is right now as a beginner, and it's not easy. So you should work towards that and plan to live your life with a positive attitude. So at this time, you have taken a precious rebirth, which have incredible capacity, and you have much potential to think in a better way and have the opportunity to benefit all beings, including yourself. So you can create happiness with the wisdom of understanding cause and karma. So that's the fourth hall. Now we finished the outer preliminaries, their signs for practicing them. Um, Meditate on a little bit and then take a break. Maybe like, okay, a little bit, maybe a little bit on the four thoughts here, right? So this, as I said, these meditations um, help change the mind away from distractions and focus on what truly matters. Um, Liberation from suffering. This meditation, the four thoughts. So sit comfortably. Um, Maybe close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths because, you know, that helps your mind, your body relax. And bring your attention inward and take a moment to reflect on the precious opportunity of being born a human life, human being with all these freedoms and advantages. With that, contemplate the incredible potential of this life, how you can use it to grow in wisdom, compassion, and freedom from suffering. I mean, we have this potential, we have these opportunities if we don't waste it. And then think you have access to um, these profound teachings and the freedom to choose your path. Rest there for a moment and gratitude for this opportunity. Then think how will I use this precious life wisely, meaningfully, then reflect on the impermanent nature of this life, even with this in- incredible potential and opportunities, but nothing lasts forever. If we waste this precious human life, impermanence is inevitable. So recognize that your life is like a bubble on the surface of water. Each moment that passes is one moment closer to older and death. And recognize that knowing impermanence can inspire you to let go of attachment and clinging. It brings you peace and enjoyment in your day-to-day life if there is no attachment. and reflect on the power of mindfulness in choosing actions that benefit yourself and others.